Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are taking a real close look, maybe even a scalpel, to what might just be the most famous spontaneous jam session ever caught on tape. Look, if you've been anywhere near a speaker or probably a viral video sometime in the last, 7 years, you've definitely experienced Tadow by Masego and FKJ.
Oh, absolutely. You don't just hear it, you feel it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we're not just here for the groove today, amazing as it is. We're actually dissecting a moment of, well, almost accidental genius.
It really is the sound of something sublime, isn't it? And what's fascinating is that it wasn't crafted over weeks of painstaking work. It was distilled into this single 8-minute plus completely unedited burst of creativity.
Right.
So our mission today really is to look past that irresistible surface, that groove, and examine how this one track, which was, wildly successful, but born from pure spontaneity, how it manages to pack in these really complex ideas.
Ideas from all over the place.
Yeah, spanning disciplines. You've got production engineering, you've got semiotics, the study of signs and symbols, behavioral psychology, even some pretty deep philosophy. We're looking at what in academic circles we might call an artifact of ingeniería cultural emergentemente compleja.
Okay, hold on. That's quite a term.
Yeah.
Ingeniería cultural emergentemente compleja. Can you break that down for us? What does that actually mean in plain English?
Right, yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful. It basically means emerging complex cultural engineering.
Okay.
So it describes something like a piece of music or an idea that wasn't meticulously designed from the top down by some committee, right?
Yeah.
It just arose organically from maybe a simple interaction.
Like a jam session.
Exactly like a jam session. But then it ends up having this incredibly complex structure and profound meaning that's way bigger than just the initial parts.
And Tadow is a perfect example.
It's a prime example, yeah, because it just shatters that modern myth of, needing endless production, endless tweaking to make a hit song.
And that really is the core paradox we need to start with, isn't it? I mean, the sources all confirm this song is certified platinum. RIAA platinum in the U.S. plus Canada, Australia. It's huge.
Globally huge.
A globally defining track. And yet, this polished-sounding professional hit, it came from a completely improvised jam session, captured, as you said, in one single unedited take, over 8 minutes long.
They didn't even plan to release it initially, which is wild.
It's just radical authenticity, basically captured on tape.
Precisely. I mean, normally a song like this would take weeks, maybe months. Detailed recording, endless editing, maybe auto-tune, dozens of takes for every little part.
Yeah.
Tadow is it's the document, the raw record of a single fluid artistic conversation happening in real time.
So let's quickly set the scene with the architects of this moment, the two artists involved. First up, you've got Masego, Micah Davis, the guy who basically coined his own genre, right? Trap house jazz. He brings that smooth saxophone, the witty improvised lyrics, that pure soul vibe. He's kind of the catalyst in this reaction.
He really is. He ignites it. And then on the other side, you have FKJ, Vince Fenton, the French multi-instrumentalist. He is the architect, the builder of that live groove.
Right.
FKJ is, he's renowned for his absolute mastery of live looping. And he has this unique blend of French house, that sort of new French touch sound.
And their chemistry, which just kind of happened almost by accident in Paris.
Yeah.
That became the sonic foundation for this global phenomenon.
A beautiful accident.
Okay, so let's really unpack this now. The big question.
Yeah.
How did this informal session, which was filmed, right, in the Red Bull Studios in Paris back in 2017, it was just meant to be a studio capsule session, like for their YouTube channel or something.
Yeah, documentation mainly.
How does that become this defining track? We probably have to start with the technical architecture. How was it built?
We absolutely do. And this is where we need to focus on FKJ's method.
Okay.
Because he isn't just a performer who happens to use a looper pedal. He uses the looper as his compositional system. He's building the entire world of the song right there in real time.
And the specific gear matters here, doesn't it?
Hugely. The crucial piece is the Boss RC505 loop station.
Okay, the RC505. Why is that one so important? Why not just any old looper pedal you stomp on?
Good question. Because the RC505 is a tabletop model. It's designed to be used with your hands, not your feet.
Okay.
Which is critical for what FKJ does. It lets him manipulate 5 simultaneous stereo tracks with his hands, often while he's still playing an instrument with the other hand or getting ready to play the next one. It gives him incredibly precise control over starting, stopping, overdubbing effects.
So it's less like just repeating a riff and more like Conducting an orchestra of himself.
That's a great way to put it. It's like having a spontaneous 5-track recording studio right at his fingertips, where the composition and the performance are happening absolutely simultaneously. He's arranging on the fly.
And watching him do it is mesmerizing. He builds this loop layer by layer. Let's break down those layers. What actually creates that signature Tadow atmosphere?
Okay, layer 1. This is where the emotional core comes in, the soul of the track. It usually starts with that beautiful Rhodes electric piano sound.
That warm, slightly fuzzy keyboard sound?
Exactly. And that establishes the whole harmonic language, warm, sophisticated, definitely leaning into neo-soul territory. But we need to talk about the voicings, the specific notes he chooses for the chords.
Right. It's not just basic chords?
No, definitely not. FKJ doesn't play simple triads like you might in basic pop. He uses what we call open voicings, spreading the notes out, and lots of jazz extensions, especially sevenths and ninths.
Okay, so for someone listening who maybe doesn't have the music theory background, what does that sound like? What effect do those sevenths and ninths have?
It means the sound feels both familiar, because it's built on recognizable chords, but also complex and richer. Those jazz extensions add these little hints of dissonance, a kind of sophisticated tension or color. It gives the harmony this slightly melancholic, inherently cool, classy tone. Think of it like the difference between, I don't know, a bright primary color and a deep, complex shade like burgundy or teal. It's instantly more nuanced. It's the sound of a velvet curtain opening, setting a very specific mood.
Okay, so that's the harmonic foundation. Sophisticated, moody. What gives it the actual physical momentum, the thing that makes you nod your head?
Right, that comes next. Layer 2 is the anchor, the bass line. And here's a really cool technical detail you can actually see him do in the video. He often plays the bass notes using his electric guitar.
On a guitar, not a bass guitar.
Yeah, often on his Fender Telecaster, he might be using an octave pedal to drop the pitch down digitally, or just playing on the lower strings of the guitar itself. It's kind of a hybrid technique.
Why do that? What does that give him?
Well, it captures both the melodic shape of the bass line and the specific rhythmic thump you need for the groove, but it has the attack, the tonal quality of a guitar string being plucked, which is slightly different from a bass.
So it's not just mimicking a bass, it's its own unique sound.
Precisely, and that specific attack, that quality, provides what you might call the groove liquid. It's the subtle thing that makes your head start nodding almost without you realizing it.
Right.
The bass line itself is pretty simple, quite repetitive, but it's incredibly effective and melodic. It locks everything down. It's the anchor that stops the whole thing just floating off into like pure abstract jazz fusion territory. It keeps it grounded.
Okay, foundation and anchor established. Then he adds the texture, right? The element that gives the track its distinctive swagger, its walk.
Yes. Layer 3, the texture. He uses the guitar again here, but in a totally different way. Now it's for these muted percussive chords. You hear it in funk and reggae a lot, sometimes called chucking or skanking.
Chicka sound.
Exactly that. It provides the distinct funk flavor, or maybe even a bit of a house music feel. It functions almost entirely as a melodic percussion layer. It's filling in the gaps, the negative space between the Rhodes chords and the bass notes.
And that's what gives it the strut.
That is absolutely the ingredient that gives the song its characteristic strut. Or you might say it's cadencia, that fluid, confident, rhythmic movement. It implies forward motion.
Yeah, I can hear that. If you mentally took that layer out, the song would instantly lose that sort of urban, confident walking pace.
Totally. It would feel much more static. That rhythmic guitar part almost demands movement from the listener.
Okay, so we have harmony, bass, rhythmic texture. What are the actual beat?
Right. Layer 4 is the minimalist beat, and minimalist is key here. It's a soft electronic beat. Sounds like maybe from a simple drum machine patch. It's got that kind of lazy boom bap feel, sitting at around 90 BPM. The tempo is crucial.
90 BPM. Why is that specific tempo important for this particular groove?
Well, think about most high-energy dance music, or trap music even. That often lives way up in the 120 to 140 BPM range, sometimes higher. That kind of tempo drives this relentless momentum, right? It pushes you.
Yeah, forces you to move fast.
But 90 BPM, that's the pace of a relaxed walk. Or sinking into a comfortable lounge chair, or just, a steady head nod. It immediately signals that this moment is unhurried. There's no rush.
Okay.
And furthermore, the sources, and just listening closely, suggest there's a significant amount of swing applied to that beat. Probably around 58 to 60% quantization, maybe even a bit more.
Okay, swing, quantization. For the listener, what does 60% swing actually do to the rhythm? How does it feel?
Right, so quantization is basically snapping notes to a perfect rhythmic grid. 0% swing means everything is perfectly on the beat, robotic like a metronome, very rigid.
Okay.
But as you add swing, certain notes, usually the offbeats, the ands in 1 and 2, and get deliberately pushed slightly later, slightly behind that rigid grid. So a song with maybe 60% swing feels human. It breathes. It has this slight lilt, this relaxed, leaning back in its chair kind of feel.
Makes sense. Not rushed, almost lazy, but in a cool way.
Exactly. It creates that elegant, unhurried, almost, I don't know, slightly intoxicated vibe. It definitely pushes the whole feeling more towards lounge than trap, despite Masego's genre name. It gives the entire foundation this very elegant, confident posture.
You know, it sounds like the loop itself, just the instrumental bed, already embodies that confidence that Masego sings about later. It has no rush. It has nowhere else to be. It's just cool.
It absolutely is the sonic embodiment of cool, self-assured. And it's only after that mesmerizing, hypnotic, perfectly imperfect loop is established and running, only then does Masego enter the picture.
The catalyst.
The catalyst, yeah.
With
The improviser, the decorator, he comes in to build on top of FKJ's architecture.
And he starts, famously, with the element that really defines the song's signature fusion sound, that saxophone hook.
Yes, that's his opening statement. Masego enters with the main melodic theme on his alto saxophone. I think it's a Yamaha Custom Z he often plays. And crucially, his phrasing, the way he plays those notes, it's steeped in classic jazz articulation. You can hear echoes of giants like, say, Cannonball Adderley in his tone and attack.
So real jazz chops.
Definitely. And playing that traditional, warm, bluesy jazz sax over this modern French house funk rhythm, that's precisely where the trap house jazz fusion is born. Instantly. That sax hook acts almost like a second voice in the track, establishing the song's whole identity before Masego even sings a word.
And then he does bring in his actual voice,
Yeah.
but initially it's almost like he's just testing the waters, right? Feeling the groove.
Right. This is what we could call the vocal scat and rawness phase. He uses those little ad-libs, the yay, ooh, yay. Those aren't just random filler noises. That's the sound of him internalizing the groove, mapping it out in his head, maybe confirming the key, before he launches into the fully improvised lyrics.
So it's part of the process.
It's absolutely part of the process. Using that kind of rhythmic cadence, vocalizing the feel of the groove that comes straight out of the jazz tradition of scat singing. It's finding your place in the music vocally.
Now, what's truly fascinating, getting back to the production side, is the intentional choice they made to preserve this raw, lived-in sound throughout. This feels like a conscious decision about engineering authenticity.
Oh, completely. It's almost a philosophical choice not to polish away the evidence of the performance.
How so?
Well, the engineering choices perfectly mirror the philosophical theme of the song, effortless confidence, authenticity. There's this intentional, almost you could say, aggressive lack of overproduction or digital correction.
I like the vocals.
Exactly. His voice, for example, was clearly captured by a high-quality microphone, probably in a condenser like the Neumann U87, which is known for picking up incredible detail.
Yeah, industry standard.
Right. But they purposefully kept things like the natural room noise, his breaths between phrases, and maybe most importantly, you can actually hear the little clicks and slight imperfections from FKJ operating the loop pedal.
Wait, they actively chose to leave the sound of the gear working in the final track? Why would they do that?
Because I think they wanted you, the listener, to hear the mechanism, to be constantly reminded that this wasn't some perfectly rendered digital object assembled in a computer. It was a performance happening right then, in a room, by two people interacting with technology. It grounds it in reality.
That's a bold choice.
Yeah.
Most producers would scrub those sounds out immediately.
They would. And the subtle processing they did use supports this idea, too. Things like, maybe, an LA2A compressor.
The optical one, very smooth.
Extremely smooth and transparent. It levels things gently without squashing the life out of them. And maybe some EMT 140 plate reverb, which gives that classic, rich, slightly metallic vintage decay. Warmth, not sterility.
So they're using classic, warm-sounding gear like the LA2A, not to fundamentally change the sound or fix imperfections, but just to kind of glue it together, ensure it sounds lived in, not surgically produced.
Precisely. It guarantees that feeling of authenticity. It's the technical execution of the song's core philosophical statement about being real.
Wow.
And we can't forget that great little anecdotal detail about Masego using something really unconventional for a sound source.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
Apparently, at one point, maybe needing a little extra percussion texture, he just used his passport.
His passport. You kidding?
Yeah.
He's in $1 million studio surrounded by gear, and he
Yeah.
uses his travel document.
That's the story.
Yeah.
Just hitting it near the microphone to get
Yeah.
this little organic thwack sound. It's playful. It's spur of the moment. It adds to that sense of sound brilliance.
That's amazing.
And it just reinforces the idea that the music came from whatever was immediately available, prioritizing creativity and invention over sticking to convention.
Mhm.
Use what you've got.
So, okay, let's connect the dots back to the central theme then. The way this track was made, the production method, it's like a direct metaphor for what the lyrics are about.
It really is, isn't it? The creative process itself feels effortless, feels authentic. It's not overproduced. It wasn't endlessly edited. It used whatever was at hand, like the passport.
Yeah.
And that perfectly mirrors the kind of confidence Masego describes in the lyrics, especially that line, "She ain't even show nothing." She doesn't need artifice. The song itself is confident because it's unashamedly just this one take, warts and all, full force, no corrections needed. It stands on its own.
That transitions us perfectly, actually. Moving from the production how to the lyrical what, we now have to dive into the core concept itself. We have to ask the defining question, the one everyone asks the first time they hear it.
Right.
What exactly is Tadow?
Right, and it's significantly more than just a cool sound effect, linguistically speaking.
Right.
Well, Tadow isn't really a recognized word in formal English dictionaries. It functions as an onomatopoeia, or maybe more accurately, an ideophone.
Okay, onomatopoeia, like buzz or hiss. What's an ideophone?
Ideophones are words that evoke a sensory experience, a sound, a sight, a feeling through their sound structure alone. Think glitter or murmur. Tadow represents the sound of an instantaneous impact, like you said, maybe like POW or BAM from an old comic book, but imbued with this kind of musical, sensual, smooth flourish. It's got style.
So let's talk semiotics here. If the sound itself, that Tadow sound, is this signified, the thing we hear, what is the signified?
Yeah.
What complex idea does that one sound actually stand for?
The sound Tadow signifies a really quite profound and complex internal state. It's the feeling of instant, overwhelming physiological and emotional shock that happens when you witness effortless beauty combined with undeniable confidence.
Right.
It functions almost like a cortocircuito del lenguaje formal.
A short circuit of formal language.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that analogy. So the feeling, the impact is so fast and so overwhelming that the brain basically bypasses the normal verbal processing required to form a sentence like, wow, she is incredibly striking and confident.
Precisely.
And instead, it just emits the raw sound of the experience itself.
The shock preempts description. The observer is hit, as the lyric says, so quickly, so unexpectedly, that only the sonic signature of that impact remains.
Tadow. And the sound itself, the phonetics of it, seems designed to grab your attention, doesn't it? Let's talk psychoacoustics for a second.
This is really critical, actually. Psychoacoustics helps explain why that specific sound works so well. The plosive sounds, the hard T at the beginning and the D in the middle, are very effective at capturing human attention.
Explosives, like BTKBG.
Exactly. They're abrupt, sharp sounds made by momentarily stopping and then releasing airflow. They create rapid changes in air pressure that cut through background noise. Evolutionarily, our brains are kind of hardwired to notice sudden plosive sounds. They often signal important events, maybe danger, maybe opportunity.
So Tadow is like a little verbal alarm signal.
It's the verbalization of a shock straight to the limbic system. Yeah, the emotional core of the brain. It bypasses rational thought and triggers an immediate response.
And the lyrics frame this whole reaction not just as intense, but as a disruption of time. The sources mention something called chronobiology here.
Yeah, chronobiology, the study of time and biological rhythms. This is a really fascinating way to look at it. The key phrase is, hit me like Tadow. That framing defines the attraction, the impact, not as a gradual process, not something that builds over time.
Like getting to know someone.
Right. Instead, it's presented as an absolutely instantaneous event, a single, discrete point in time that dramatically disrupts the observer's normal rhythm, their normal flow of perception.
So it's like the world just stops spinning for the narrator in that one Tadow moment. Everything freezes. It's what scientists might call an acute phase event.
Precisely. It marks a sudden shift. It's a momentary collapse of conscious deliberation into just pure, visceral, unavoidable reaction. The focus isn't even on the attraction itself, but on the time it takes for that attraction to register, which is zero time, instant impact, Tadow.
Amazing. And, okay, before we get really deep into the lyrical philosophy, we should probably anchor this sound Tadow in its actual pop culture origin story, because Masego himself clarified exactly where he got it from.
He did, yeah. He mentioned on Twitter, I believe, that the word Tadow came directly from an episode of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Seriously. Fresh Prince.
Yeah. Apparently, Will Smith's character uses it in one episode kind of casually in reference to sleeping with a character named Janice. It was just sort of 90s TV slang used to denote effortless success, smooth bravado, getting something done with style.
That is incredible. So a piece of almost throwaway, masculine-coded 90s television slang gets plucked out of its original context.
Hmm.
And Masego elevates it, transforms it into this philosophical concept representing the sublime, overwhelming power of specifically female confidence.
It's a brilliant act of cultural synthesis, isn't it? He takes the soundbite of, like, male swagger and completely repurposes it to describe this awe-inspiring, specifically feminine force. It's a linguistic reversal of the implied power dynamic, which is incredibly smart and adds another layer to the song.
Wow. Okay, now let's do the deep dive into the lyrical philosophy. As you noted, the lyrics seem simple on the surface, but they actually track this fascinating journey, don't they? From that initial, almost primal physical reaction, the Tadow, hit toward a much more philosophical contemplation. Let's start maybe with verse 2.
That progression is really the narrative spine of the song, I think. The initial reaction is raw lust, awe, maybe confusion. But by the third verse, the narrator is grappling with these quite profound epistemological questions about the nature of knowledge, how we know things, and about authenticity.
Right.
But the core thesis, the main argument, gets established clearly in verse 2, and that is the primary source of her incredible impact is her confidence, not any kind of overt physical provocation. The key line is, she ain't even show nothing.
So her power is completely decoupled from explicit display. She achieves maximum effect with seemingly minimal input or effort on her part.
Exactly that. Her power stems from her natural presence, her way of being, not from any manufactured presentation or the visible labor of her appearance. This is the central argument Masego builds. She'd be walking around so confident, so heaven-sent, I think she was meant to knock 'em dead.
Meant to knock 'em dead?
Yeah.
That highlights that almost femme fatale effect, doesn't it?
Right.
But maybe not in a malicious way.
Precisely. It suggests her sheer natural presence is somehow designed, whether intentionally by her or by fate or by heaven, to cause this overwhelming disruptive impact. Not necessarily out of malice, but just as an inherent quality of her being.
And this inherent overwhelming quality then leads the narrator, in verse 3, to question where it even comes from. This brings us to that classic nature versus nurture debate, but applied specifically to her power. This is what the sources call the epistemology of authenticity.
Right. The narrator is now actively struggling to comprehend the source of this seismic power he's witnessed. He asks those crucial questions. All that confidence, was it heaven sent? Does it come within? Does it come run out?
He's trying to figure it out. Is it a gift? Is it earned? Is it permanent?
Exactly. He's framing the source of her self-empowerment as this fundamental, maybe unanswerable question. Is it a divine external gift bestowed upon her, heaven sent? Or is it an innate internal, durable personality trait, come within? And is it finite, come run out?
And his ultimate conclusion, or lack thereof, I don't know, that's actually the key of her mystique, isn't it?
That is the entire prose. Her confidence is presented as so flawless, so impeccable, he even notes later she was never lying, which implies a complete lack of pretense or performance.
Right, total authenticity.
That the source of it becomes this impenetrable mystery, an epistemological enigma for the observer. He literally cannot rationally distinguish between her just authentically being that way and maybe a perfect performance of confidence. And her power resides in that very ambiguity. It makes her seem effortless, untouchable, almost magical.
And this ambiguity, this mystery about the source of her power, it's reinforced by that really interesting line about her shoes, which speaks volumes about sociology and status markers.
Ah, yes, that line. Strutting in her heels or her slides, either way. This is surprisingly profound sociological observation packed into a very casual phrase.
How so?
Well, the heels clearly represent a certain kind of prescribed, formal, often feminine presentation. They can signify effort, occasion, maybe conforming to certain social expectations, potentially higher status display. The slides, on the other hand, represent comfort, informality, casualness, maybe an unconcerned authenticity.
So like high-status formal wear versus just rolled out of bed casual.
Kind of, yeah. And the crucial part is, either way, her impact, her Tadow effect, is identical, regardless of whether she's adopting the formal presentation markers, heels, or the completely informal ones, slides.
So her power isn't dependent on the accessories or the context, it's inherent to her.
Exactly. It demonstrates that her power is constant, intrinsic, independent of the external context or the specific signifiers of gender presentation she chooses to adopt or not adopt. We could even analyze this through Max Weber's sociological concept of charismatic authority.
Okay, charismatic authority. Can you unpack that concept for us a bit and relate it back specifically to the heels and slides?
Sure. So Weber, a foundational sociologist, talked about different types of legitimate authority or power: traditional authority, like a king; legal rational authority, like bureaucracy, rules, laws; and then charismatic authority. Charismatic authority is power that derives purely from the personality, the magnetism, the perceived extraordinary qualities of an individual leader or figure. It's not based on rules or tradition. It's based on people being drawn to that specific person. Think of revolutionary leaders, religious prophets, or even certain celebrities.
It's about their personal force.
Precisely. It's an innate magnetic force. And that's why the heels or slides either way line is such a perfect illustration of it. Her authority, her power to knock 'em dead, doesn't come from the uniform she wears, heels or slides. It emanates directly from her presence, her movement. The shoes are just incidental background details. Her charisma transcends the dress code.
And the sources even gave a specific term for how she walks, didn't they? Like the physical embodiment of this charismatic authority.
Yes, they use the term sensuality charismatica, which sounds fancy, but it basically means the study of charismatic movement. The term suggests that her power is deeply rooted in her specific way of moving. She be walking round. Her physical embodiment of confidence, how she carries herself. Her fluid, controlled, perhaps expansive movement signals high social status and self-assurance through the way she occupies and moves through space. It relates to proxemics, the study of space and communication.
Meaning she moves like she owns the space she's in without needing to ask permission or shrink herself down.
Exactly that. She claims space effortlessly, naturally. A lack of confidence often manifests physically as tight, small, hesitant, jerky movements. Her movement, as implied by strutting, is expansive, fluid, controlled, maybe rhythmic. It radiates this effortless authority that translates directly into that feeling of Tadow for the observers.
Okay, so we've got confidence, authenticity, charismatic authority. Now, let's move towards the deeper, maybe slightly darker, more philosophical edge of this Tadow effect, the line between pure admiration and something a bit more overwhelming, dangerously powerful, maybe. We're moving into the realm of the sublime.
Yes, the crucial line we need to analyze here is, she was so sublime, super fine. It's really important to differentiate these two terms, sublime and fine, using the lens of classical aesthetic philosophy, particularly from thinkers like Immanuel Kant or Edmund Burke.
Right. They aren't synonyms. What's the key difference between something being just fine, or bello in Italian maybe, and something being sublime?
Fine or beautiful, bello, generally describes something that is harmonious, pleasing, perhaps symmetrical, easily graspable, and controllable by the mind. Think of a perfectly proportioned statue, a pleasant melody, a neat manicured garden. It evokes pleasure, admiration, a sense of order. You feel comfortable with it.
Right.
The sublime, however, describes an experience triggered by something vast, powerful, overwhelming, maybe even formless or chaotic, that seems to dwarf the observer and slightly exceed their capacity for comprehension. It inspires feelings of awe, grandeur, immensity, but also a touch of fear or terror. Think of standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon, witnessing a huge storm at sea, or contemplating the infinite scale of the universe.
So when Masego says she was sublime, he means she isn't just nice to look at, super fine. She's actually too much.
Overwhelming for the viewer to fully process or categorize neatly.
Precisely. Her presence isn't just pleasing, it's aesthetically shocking.
Yeah.
It's powerful. The Tadow impact in this reading is the sound of encountering the sublime. It's not just a wow, she's pretty moment. It's an experience that disarms, overwhelms, maybe even slightly terrifies the observer with its sheer force. It knocks them dead, aesthetically speaking. Her presence is a disruptive force, an aesthetic shockwave that temporarily paralyzes the observer's normal, rational processes.
And this overwhelming, almost dangerous quality of her presence then introduces a specifically theological layer, doesn't it? With the reference to deadly sin.
Yes, the lyric explicitly states, man they want to sin, talking deadly sin with Mrs. Lady. The underlying logic here is quite profound when you unpack it.
Go on.
Her pure, unedited confidence and beauty, which the narrator himself has previously described using divine language, calling her heaven-sent,
is apparently so potent, so overwhelming, that it actively provokes lujuria, which is lust, one of the 7 deadly sins in the male observers. Man, they want to sin.
So paradoxically, her perfection, her almost divine quality, is what leads the observers towards moral transgression, towards sin.
Exactly. The song uses the heavy framework of moral theology to describe the immense power of her female beauty and confidence. It positions it as simultaneously divine, heaven-sent, and dangerously tempting, deadly sin. It elevates her, unintentionally perhaps, into this almost archetypal figure, like a modern urban siren, or maybe even an Eve figure whose power to tempt comes not from active seduction or effort, but simply from her sheer, unedited, authentic presence.
Wow, that adds a whole other layer of complexity.
Yeah.
And this intense reaction, this mix of awe and temptation, it isn't just confined to the narrator, is it? The lyrics explicitly shift from hit me like Tadow to hit 'em like Tadow. This suggests a collective impact.
Yes, the effect immediately scales up. It becomes a phenomena de massas, a mass phenomenon. It demonstrates what psychologists call emotional contagion.
How does that work here?
Her presence seems to act like this pulse, this broadcast of high-energy, confident authenticity. And that specific emotional state, that feeling she embodies, somehow propagates through the crowd almost instantaneously like a shockwave. The narrator's initial personal fascination, hit me, quickly translates into a shared collective resonance, hit 'em. Everyone in her vicinity gets struck by the Tadow effect, seemingly all at once.
It's not just one person's reaction, it's an event happening to the whole group.
Right. It becomes a public spectacle, a shared experience generated solely by her presence.
Okay, and this leads us, I think, to the final and maybe the most complex analytical layer mentioned in the sources, this idea of a limbic economy, or what was termed the asymmetric transaction of attention. What's that about?
This is a really crucial concept, I think, for understanding not just this song, but maybe a lot of viral phenomena, charismatic power, even social media dynamics today. The core idea is this. The woman in the song performs seemingly effortless confidence. As the lyrics say, she ain't even show nothing, she be walking around. Minimal, visible effort is expended on her part, yet she captures this massive amount of what we could call capital, attentional, and emotional capital from all the observers.
So she puts in very little but gets a huge reaction.
Exactly. It's an asymmetric transaction. She seems to be spending minimal perceived resources, effort, energy, maybe even conscious thought, while they, the observers, are collectively spending maximum resources, attention, emotional energy, mental processing power, trying to understand her, desire her, react to her.
And suddenly, the narrator's recurring phrase, I don't know or I don't understand, makes perfect sense within this economic framework, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. His confusion, I don't understand it, reveals his failure to grasp the situation using normal, rational calculation. He can't figure out the exchange rate. Why are they, the observers, spending so much attention, so much emotional bandwidth, when she appears to be spending almost none?
Because the power isn't operating on a rational transactional level.
Precisely. Her power is operating on the limbic level. It's visceral, emotional, maybe even evolutionary. It bypasses logical cost-benefit analysis. She becomes this living demonstration of achieving maximum social impact, maximum perceived value with minimum perceptible effort, which of course loops right back to reinforce that core theme of authentic, unedited, effortless existence being the ultimate source of power.
This has genuinely been an extraordinary deep dive. It is truly astonishing how much density, musical, technical, semiotic, philosophical, sociological, is packed into what started out as essentially an 8-minute improvised jam session.
It really is remarkable. What we've ultimately found, I think, is that Tadow isn't just a song. It's a document of extraordinary density. And it functions on this fascinating meta level where the very spontaneity of its creation, that single, unedited take full of honest noise like the pedal clicks, full of immediate ideas, perfectly mirrors and reinforces the lyrical theme of authentic, effortless power.
The medium is the message, almost.
In a way, yes. It truly is an artifact of that ingenieria cultural emergentemente compleja we talked about right at the start. Something complex and meaningful that just emerged.
And the fundamental lesson here, maybe whether you were trying to make platinum-selling music or, I don't know, just trying to walk into a room with more confidence, perhaps it's that Tadow is what can happen when pure technique, pure skill, surrenders to the moment, surrenders to emotion. And maybe the purest, most impactful art, or even just presence, is born from taking the risk of just flowing without a rigid preconceived plan, without overthinking it.
It feels like the capture of a small miracle, doesn't it? A moment of genuine, unscripted connection and creation. And that's confirmed by that lyric we keep coming back to. She was never lying. The perceived authenticity of her presence, the lack of pretense, feels completely intertwined with the undeniable authenticity of the recording process itself, the lack of editing, the rawness. They're fundamentally connected statements about the power of just being real, artistically and personally.
So, okay, here is the provocative thought, the final idea we want to leave you, the listener, with. Building on this whole conversation about spontaneous creation and the lyrical themes, maybe the greatest impact we can have, the most Tadow effect we can generate, often comes not from all the things you meticulously add. The extra layers, the fancy production, the intense effort, the carefully chosen adornments.
Right.
But maybe it comes from the inherent power of what you don't edit out, what you choose not to hide or fix.
That's interesting.
The imperfection, the raw emotion, the unvarnished truth, the authentic confidence that doesn't need dressing up.
So the challenge is, go back and listen to Tadow again after this.
Yeah.
But listen differently this time. Listen specifically for the space. Listen for the breaths Masego takes. Listen for those little imperfections, the clicks and hums of the loop pedal that they chose to leave in. Because maybe it's precisely in those honest, unedited moments, the moments they consciously chose not to fix, not to polish away, that the effortless confidence, the unedited truth of the song becomes truly deeply palpable. Maybe that is the real sound of the sublime. Maybe that is Tadow.